Pennsylvania Congressman Guy Reschenthaler joins us now to talk more about that. He's in a state that is critical in these elections, especially in a presidential election, the state of Pennsylvania. I think Lee Zeldin said it better than anybody has so far. And I just wondered, I mean, if that kind of work had happened in Pennsylvania, I think you get a much different outcome in that state.
Rob, you're absolutely correct. What we need to do is we need to realize that it's not just about getting votes. That's obviously part of every election. But now, because the Democrats have changed the rules, it's also about collecting ballots or getting ballots in. So we need to start telling people that it's okay to vote by mail, but drop it off at the local place. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to get sick. You don't know if you're going to have to go out of town on emergency. The Democrats are ruthlessly effective at harvesting ballots and focusing on ballots. I would argue they're more focused on that than actual messaging. Yeah. We as Republicans need to do both. And for those Republicans out there who don't like this and think that we shouldn't be engaged in this, this wasn't our call. It was the Democrat General Assemblies in so many states that made it so easy to collect ballots and do ballot harvesting and lowered the threshold for mail-in votes. We need to just say, okay, these are the rules. We're going to play by your rules, and we're going to beat you at your own rules. Lee Zeldin is 100% correct.
Yeah, it's well said. It's pretty obvious the failures that we saw. I think everybody was shocked by the results. We all thought it was just going to be this enormous tidal wave because the people in charge are so awful and doing such a terrible job. And when it didn't happen, it required reflection. And I think somebody that knows the games that are played is going to come out of a place like New York where they're playing all sorts of games, where they're harvesting like crazy in inner cities and going door to door and housing projects and lying to people about why they need to vote. And I mean, there's a million different ways they scare people into voting, and the way that they do it and the fact that they get a month to do it now, it should have been more obvious that we were in trouble if we didn't adapt. We need to adapt. In the House caucus, there were 31 votes against Kevin McCarthy to be the leader, to be the speaker. He needs to get through the floor vote on January 3rd. He's going to need more votes than it looks like he has right now. You've been a strong supporter of Kevin McCarthy. I think a lot of people watching might not think he's got enough edge. He's not conservative enough. He can't do the job as well as they'd like. Why do you defend him?
Well, Rob, Kevin McCarthy is going to be Speaker of the House come January 3rd, and he is incredibly conservative. It's patently unfair to compare Kevin McCarthy to Boehner and Paul Ryan. He's a completely different kind of elected official. And I would say he and Steve Scalise are the most conservative leaders that we're going to have this cycle. If you look at either of their voting records, you'd be surprised how conservative they are. Now, for the 31 in our conference that voted against Kevin McCarthy in this last, you got to remember that that's an internal vote. It's much different when you're on the floor. So that happened 2 or 4 years ago. And then once you got to the floor, people publicly voted for Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. But let me just say this, Rob. The hardliners, the 4 or 5 who say they're not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy under any circumstances, they're playing a very dangerous game of political chicken here. Because all it takes is that moderate Republicans, the Tuesday group, and I am not part of the Tuesday group, but that Tuesday group, the Brian Fitzpatricks, the Dave Joyces, those Republicans that represent more urban areas and suburbs close to Philadelphia, Cleveland, for example, in those 2 cases, they can join forces with moderate Democrats and they can pick whoever they want. You don't have to be a member of the House to be Speaker. So they could put up Liz Cheney, and you better believe it. Every Democrat would love us to have to hand the gavel to Liz Cheney. And that group of moderate Republicans might go along with it. They could put up someone like Bill Richardson, former governor of New Mexico, Joe Lieberman. The list goes on and on. So to the hardliners that are saying that they're not going to vote for any Kevin McCarthy under any circumstances, if you play silly games, you win silly prizes. Just get ready for what happens.
Congressman, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.